So guys, welcome back to the Revival Podcast. Another episode, another Zoom meeting, and another long distance podcast. Yeah. So today is Sunday, and it's the day after the Urbi et Orbi blessing. And I think all of us feel blessed and graceful. We're forgiven our sins, and it's all amazing like that. So, welcome back to the Revival Podcast. So, Rahul is here.
Yeah. So is Dennis, me.
And hi, it's Jennifer.
Okay, so there's a little bit of lag on my side. I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, today we're going to be talking about the Pope. Isn't that right, Jenny?
Yes, the Pope.
The man himself. So we're going to be talking about, I don't know, just in this worrying times, how the Pope is being with us and how he's giving us blessing and what he does in general. Because I know most people's like, what is the point of having a Pope, or why do we need a Pope?
A lot of us saw him recently, and even people who didn't follow him were let known through the stories, through Instagram, through the media about this huge blessing. And so they must be wondering, even people who don't know him, who is the Pope? What does he do? Why do we follow him? What does his leadership entail?
Because for Catholics, it's fairly understood. We know who the Pope is. But for someone who's outside of Catholicism, it might seem a bit of a mystery. Who is this world-renowned leader? Yeah. But we don't really know much about him.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll start off.
And I'm sure like all these people have seen him on TV as well, because he's famous.
Yeah.
This man in white with his hat, waving at people. Why are people coming to see him? Why are people, traveling so far, trying to get so close to him? What's the reason? So, we're going to talk about that. And so let's start with the origin, I would say. So, Rahul, the origin.
Okay, before I start talking about it, I want to get something cleared. Two things cleared. First of all, the reason I say Rahul is because white people couldn't pronounce my name, and I changed my pronunciation that way.
Yeah.
Really?
Second thing, I am not an Arsenal fan. I am not an Arsenal fan. This is the only thing I could find at home.
Because you're an Arsenal fan?
No, I'm a Liverpool fan. Always have, always will be.
So
anyway.
Liverpool fan. All right, yeah.
It got small. Anyway, going back, the origin of the Pope. So, the Pope is the Bishop of Rome, generally, okay? And the word Pope comes from a Greek word called Papas, P-A-P-P-A-S, and it means father in Greek. And Rome's bishop was generally seen as the father figure of the early church because the link with St. Peter and all that stuff. So Jesus appointed St. Peter as the rock for his church, as the foundation for the church for him to be built on.
Yeah, and in Matthew 16, he says, I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven.
Yep. So, because back then the Roman Empire were ruling everywhere pretty much, it was ideal for Rome to be the center of the church, if that makes sense, because it was growing and it was huge. So if Rome, because it was the biggest center, it was a good place to spread the faith, to do ministry. So that's why Rome was generally connected with it. Yeah? So that is pretty much, we can say, origin of the Pope. So what does the Pope do in the Catholic Church? So that's a big question we get asked, because most people are like, oh, he's just an old man who sits around or prays a lot, so on and so forth. He's actually not. He's in charge of, he's the first and foremost supreme pastor of the church. So this means he represents Christ's love and concern for every single individual. And that's why most popes' priority is getting to see people, getting to know them, talking to them, even touching them. That's the main reason. Because he is the supreme pastor. He is like Jesus' representation. Like all priests are, but like He is Jesus' representation on earth. He is that father figure for us on earth. But that doesn't mean we worship him or we adore him or praise him.
Yeah.
We don't even pray to him.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, so the Pope is also called the unifier of the people of God. Because the Catholic Church has an international character. So there's Catholic churches everywhere, like legit everywhere. So because of that, and because of the amount of other smaller sister denominations and other Christian denominations there is, the Pope is in charge of building relationships, building bridges with those churches and with the leaders of those churches so that all of them can come together, and in the end, the final goal is to get to Jesus in heaven. So that's why he's called the Supreme Pastor, the unifier of the people of God, so on and so forth.
The Pope also has diplomatic responsibilities because he is in charge of the Vatican City, which is a state country itself. So he does, meetings with different politicians and at different places, and he, not as well as the religious part, he also has the diplomatic side to him.
Yeah, that was actually a bit of a shock to me, because when I was researching it, because mostly when we think about the Pope, it's mostly on the religious side.
Yeah.
You don't really think about the political side, where he has to run the Vatican City, where he has to meet with diplomats, like prime ministers, presidents, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I generally just thought he was meeting with those people to spread the word of God, not.
Exactly.
I didn't think he was given that response. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, have you guys heard of this thing called the Chair of Peter, St. Peter?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the Chair of St. Peter is two things. It's a physical chair or a physical throne, but there's also a spiritual aspect to it. Okay, so basically the chair bit, a symbol, it was thought that St. Peter sat on this throne or this chair when he was the first pope, but he was never the first pope, if that makes any sense, because he never called himself the pope or went around as the pope. So the spiritual aspect is a very ancient tradition that has been proven to be existed in Rome since the 4th century. So on that chair of St. Peter, it's a feast day, February 22nd, I think, if I'm correct. Anyway, on that day, we give thanks to God for the mission entrusted to the Apostle Peter and his successors. So there's a word called cathedra, which means the established seat of the bishop. And that seat, like that spiritual seat and that physical seat, is a sign of the bishop's authority and in particular of his magisterium. Okay, so the magisterium means the evangelical teaching, which as a successor of the apostle, he's called to protect and safeguard and transmit and share. Okay, so the See of Rome, after St. Peter's travels, thus came to be recognized as the seat of the successor of St. Peter. Okay, and hence how it became the spiritual chair of St. Peter.
So the See is
the See of Rome. Do you know the SEE? How do you?
Do you know? I'm just like explain about it.
Oh, the See of Rome.
See.
Okay, so that okay. How would I explain the See of Rome? The See of Rome is like the Vatican City, basically that area. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sure. So that Rome. Okay. So the Holy See. Do you know when we call the Holy See of Rome? It's it's that like that area that the Pope governs as the Bishop of Rome. So that's called the Holy See, or this. Yeah.
His jurisdiction.
Yeah, his jurisdiction. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that is the See. So basically, the chair of St. Peter physically is that spiritual tradition of sharing, of being the Pope, sharing the faith, that kind of thing. That is the chair of St. Peter. Mm-hmm. So history behind the Pope. Quick run through. Jenny? quick run through?
So basic history, I would say, is in the ancient times, the popes that were elected were done by a specific set of people. There was no name for it. Now it's the Second Council of Lyon, but before there was no name to it, I think. And they just had the role of spreading Christianity and also intervening to find resolutions within the doctrines of the church. And they played a secular importance in the Western Europe and just kind of a mediator between the Christian monarchs. And so basically kind of what the Pope is doing now, but more modern.
Okay. That sounds about right, I guess. So what is this? Okay, so first of all, why do we need this Pope? Or what is the importance behind the Pope? Like, why do we need a leader like the Pope in the Catholic Church? What is his role in the international world? Like, how has different popes brought different things that made more relationships or brought the church stronger, closer together? Dennis?
That's a big-ass question. So
it is. Let's split it up into parts. Let's split it up into parts. Why do we need a leader?
We always need a leader because if we have someone who is going to be our example, someone who is taking his orders pretty much directly from the big guy, I'm happy to follow someone like that. I'm not going to lie. Someone to lead by example, lead by his faith, lead by his strength. We always need someone like that because it's easier to follow God if there's someone you look up to. And it's easier to follow God and to be strong in faith if you feel that you are part of something bigger, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also it's like we are the ship and he's the captain, so we need that. We need a captain.
That's actually, I never thought about it like that. That's actually a good example. Okay, so we need a leader because we need someone to guide us, because a sheep needs shepherd. It's that kind of thing, basically. And a shepherd sometimes needs his assistance because there's a lot of sheep. And the Pope is that assistant, basically. Exactly. So, what is his role in the international world? We kind of touched on it, saying he's like a diplomat, that kind of stuff. What does he do as that, as the leader of the Vatican City or as the leader of the Bishop of Rome?
He has so our Pope now, he has weekly meetings with the people who gather at the square. Yeah, St. Peter's Square.
I mean, that's been closed off due to coronavirus.
Not now. Obviously.
Don't go to the state. You will get arrested.
Yeah. And then he does masses and sermons.
Yeah.
That are also.
He's also we kind of touched on it because he's also in charge of building that relationship with the other churches and with other religions.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys saw recently of Jesus kissing the feet of the man, the Korean authorities, begging them to stop the war. Have you guys not seen that? Jesus. Oh no, Jesus! Sorry, not Jesus. Oh my days.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Pope Francis.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't.
See, it was quite I think it was a few months ago where Jesus was begging the Korean. Jesus Pope. Again! Oh my days! The Pope. The Pope was begging the Korean authorities to stop the war, the fight, and then he fell down onto the foot of the authorities. It was very it was a very popular thing. Let me just see. Yeah. Anyway, going on. The conclave, the whole election of the Pope. That is one interesting thing because go on. Go on.
So how exactly is a Pope elected? Does he have to pass away? Can he resign and appoint someone else?
Okay, so what happens is, according to canon law, if a pope resigns, okay, the required validity for that resignation is made freely and properly manifested and is not accepted by anyone. If that makes sense. So basically, it has to be a proper reason why he cannot continue on for him to go on. And so, or if the Pope dies. So it's 99% of the time is when Pope dies. And for the first time since like the 12th century, Pope Benedict resigned because of his health.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is popes are chosen by the College of Cardinals. So these guys, basically the cardinals.
Yeah.
And these, they are ordained bishops and they're handpicked by the Pope. They're appointed by the Pope. So they're summoned to the meeting into the Vatican for the papal election, and that's called the conclave, right? Yeah. So right now we have around 203 cardinals from 69 countries.
Yeah.
And if you're over the age of 80, you cannot vote.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah.
Right, so there'll... okay, so... Okay. Normally, there's this person called the Dean of the College of Cardinals.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, so what does he do? Do you know, Jenny? Or do you know, Dennis?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so what he does is he's in charge of convoking the conclave. Okay?
Good.
Yeah, so he's in charge of the conclave. He's the one hosting the meeting.
Yeah, he hosts it. He's the chair, if that makes sense. So he's the one who will be dictating the pace. He'll be the first counter, that kind of thing.
Well, can he be the Pope?
No, I'm pretty sure he can't.
Okay, he can't be selected to be the Pope.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but... okay.
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he can't.
No, I think it can be the Pope. If suppose this dean is the one who's elected as the Pope, then he becomes the Pope. You understand?
Yeah,
also,
probably.
And the vice dean, and the vice dean becomes then
the dean.
The dean
okay.
of the.
Cool.
Okay. So there's also a Cardinal Camerlengo or Chamberlain. So his job is to supervise the entire election process. There's votes, so you vote 4 times a day until the certain quota is reached. So
2/3 of the whole meeting, they should agree on one person. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So even though there only almost 115 are eligible to vote because of the age restriction, all the cardinals are in the conclave. They all reside within the Vatican, and they're not allowed any contact with the outside world.
And with each other, I think, as well.
Yeah. And in secrecy, during that time of the conclave, the cardinals will be talking with each other about, in strict secrecy though, about the merits of likely candidates. Okay, if that makes that's okay, yeah? So then the election process is you put in. Okay, so basically what happens is you take a vote, you write someone's name, they pray for a while, you write their name, and every one by one you go up to there's going to be 4 counters, like actual counters, like people counting.
Isn't it like a chalice, and on top of that is a plate, and they put the ballot on the plate, so that everyone can, so that's a kind of a good way of preventing someone to vote more than once.
Yeah, so you put the paper on the plate, and then also you lift up your paper and say, this is who I believe, like in the presence of God, this is who I honestly believe should be voted. You put the chalice, you take the plate and put it into the chalice. And all 115 cardinals that are eligible to vote, do
Yeah.
that. So this process takes some time. One person can take up to 5 minutes by the time you walk up, say the thing, and walk back. And then you open it, 4 different people count it.
Mm-hmm.
And each time you open a name, you say the name out loud.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
then
you
you
get
put a string through it and tie it
and then
so
tie
that
it
it's
up,
secure.
and then and then you also put a clip, like a dot clip on it, like a punch hole.
Mm.
So it's been proved. And then once that vote is done, if they haven't got a 2-1 majority thing, draw, what they do is they burn the already recorded paper, and they put some gray color into it, so the gray comes out as gray through the furnace. And this process can be a matter of hours. The first time they all like, this guy, or it could be weeks, it could be months.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually when they vote on the new pope, they spend the white smoke that we look at for so long.
That's just the burning of the ballots.
Yes, so that's so they put white like powder, I'm guessing.
No, they don't
or
put
is that
white
natural?
powder.
Is that natural?
It's just it's natural.
Okay. I don't know. I thought they kept put white. I know they put gray powder for the gray color.
Yeah, they put this kind of a black. It's called something neri. That means black in Italian. So it's something like that to give the black gray smoke. But when they've made the decision, it's just the ballots that are burned up. It's white smoke.
I didn't know that. Okay, so we've talked about the history of the Pope. We've talked about what his role is. We've talked about how votes are casted and all that. So I think it's important we talk about St. Peter. Because this whole thing of the papacy and the whole thing of this chair of St. Peter, it all came from him.
Yep.
So
why did God entrust this onto St. Peter, you would say? This responsibility, because it's a huge responsibility. I mean, first of all, at that time, no one believed in Jesus Christ like we do now. So he had to go out into the world, spread the word of the Lord and spread Christianity. It's quite hard. And why do you think Jesus gave Peter that responsibility and thought that, this is the right guy for this job? I entrust this upon him.
I think... No, Dennis, go on.
No, I mean the why part, because you could say that he was the first one who kind of acknowledged out loud that Jesus was the Son of God.
Mm-hmm.
There was that thing. But as to, I personally think it could have been anyone, and I think it was just God's will, because God works like that. God gives that's his thing. He doesn't necessarily give it to who you're thinking of. He gives it to the one he wants, kind of thing. And he wanted Peter. As to why, I don't think like God, so I don't really know.
Yeah.
But he chose him. But the thing is, he chose him, but he also made changes. Like he changed his name from Simon to Peter. And he did many other things. I think it was the changing of the name. I think that's significant because when you change someone's name, it's almost like you're changing an essence of who they are.
Yeah.
The identity.
Exactly. And he's changing him into someone who can lead the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that works into, I think there was a quote, I think we say it quite often. Jesus doesn't choose.
God,
he doesn't choose.
God doesn't choose the perfect. He perfects the chosen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just what happened.
Like Peter was nowhere near perfect. He was like you, me, doubtful. Okay, but God never chooses the strongest or the perfectest, most perfect. But he gets those weak people. He gets the non-perfect and makes them stronger, makes them more perfect. And actually, his death is actually very interesting. Because he was crucified on Vatican Hill.
Mm-hmm.
and he was crucified. But the guy was like, I'm not worthy to be crucified the same way as my Lord did. So what they did was they crucified him upside down.
Yep.
So, because he felt unworthy to die the same way as Jesus did. And he's buried in Rome, on Vatican Hill itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, like, his life is very interesting when you go through it. There's so much, like, we don't have time to go through his life because it's very interesting. But before we end it, we're going to quickly run through the coolest or the most special popes over the last few years. A few of them, a few of our personal favorites, we can say, in some ways or forms. So,
Actually,
do you guys have any? Go on.
Actually, before we do that, we kind of have missed out, arguably the biggest part of this. We have not talked about our current pope.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I was gonna say, I'm like, we should maybe talk about the Pope now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, let's talk about him. The big man himself, Papa Francesco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So his name
Christian
is
name. Yeah. You want to say it? Do you want to say it?
Do you want to say it? I know you want to say it.
I'll say it.
Okay, so okay, you say that.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So his Christian name is Jorge Mario Bergoglio. Yeah, and he was born in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and he became the archbishop there. And he's a smart person. He studied, he's got degrees in philosophy and chemistry, and
Chemistry?
as well as, in chemistry, I know, and as well as theology. He has a doctorate in theology. So he's smart, yeah. And he's also our first Jesuit Pope?
Jesuit,
Pope. Yeah.
Yeah. He is I think he is the first, yeah. And he's also the first non-Italian pope. No, he's the second non-Italian pope.
Okay. I was like,
Second, because
really?
the first was Saint Benedict.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, where was he from?
Germany.
Germany, yeah.
Yeah.
Deutschland.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's also, Pope Francis is the first pope in the history of papacy, whatever, in the last 264 chairs, whatever. He is the first pope to have the name Francis. So
it's always John, Paul, Benedict,
Peter, Benedict.
Yeah, Peter. Yeah.
And then there's Constantine, Urban. Do you know there's a pope called Urban?
Yeah.
There's like a few popes called Urban. It's mad. So he used to have a girlfriend. He worked as a bouncer in a bar.
What?
Yeah, he back in Buenos Aires, he used to work as a bouncer. He worked as a bouncer. He worked as a bouncer in Buenos Aires in a bar.
Yeah.
Anyway, at the time, when he was elected, medical professionals were concerned about himself because he has a missing lung, because he removed it back when he was a teen. But to be honest, he has very good health for 83-year-old?
81, I think.
He's 81.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was elected in March 2013, so that was when he was 76, and now, so that makes him 81, I would say now.
That's age. So, Papa Francesco, I think he's one of the deadliest popes I've ever seen. He's so hands-on. He's like, I want to meet people. I want to go there. I want to do that. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's muddy. I don't care if it's cold. I don't care if I'm going to get shot down. I am going there.
But I also think he is the Pope we needed now, because the way he thinks, the things that he does, the things that he advocates for, they're very, I wouldn't say modern, but to do with the time now, like climate change and things like that. He cares for things like that. So very apt for our time and our needs.
He's actually very modern as well. He tweets.
There we go.
He has 7 million. He has 7 million followers on Twitter. Did you know that?
Wow.
And this actually, he actually has he is loving and caring, and he's but he's not entirely sure of what his stand on gay marriage is, because he's openly stated before that gay marriage isn't included in God's plan, and this caused
Controversy.
an uproar in 2015
Yeah.
because he met with Kim Davis. He's a Kentucky clerk in America who was jailed for refusing same-sex marriage.
Mhm.
But that's a whole different topic, so we're not going to be talking about in this podcast, but we'll try. We'll see, because we have time now. We'll try and see what we can do, because we're going to be recording podcasts quite regularly now, so let's see what we can do. Do you guys want to, if you guys want to hear it, comment down below. If you want to hear us talk about same-sex marriage or abortion or something like that, go down. We'll try our best to do what we can.
No promises, to be honest.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll try our best. That's what we're going to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So, coolest popes. So we've talked about St. Peter. He's one of the deadliest popes as the first pope. We talked about Papa Francesco. And one of my personal favorites is John Paul II.
Yes. Yes.
John Paul II
Yeah.
is a deadly pope because he's like a very close resemblance with Papa Francis.
Mhm.
Like he was like he chose to say he would have not been elected. He was only elected, I think, 30 days after the election of Paul VI. So what happened was, I think and he was elected, and the amazing thing about him was he served in World War II. He was a priest during World War II, and he was Polish. That's the thing. He was Polish.
Yeah.
He used to do, like, it was mad. Like, there's like, he was a very modern pope for that time. Like, if you read his autobiography, or his biography, you'll see things like him living under the bunkers with his dad, doing mass in secret, and he was very much into theater, so doing skits, doing promos, that kind of thing. He is very much into, like, he's one of my favorite popes of all time.
Isn't he connected to something called like the fall of the Iron Curtain?
He's connected to that.
Yeah,
he's connected to
apparently.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
We are talking about Pope John Paul II, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He apparently personally helped bring the fall of the Iron Curtain. I know.
Man. Okay, so there's this Pope Pontitian. Okay? He was the Pope during the 3rd century, I'm guessing? Around. And he's the first Pope to resign. Because
okay.
He was the Pope. He's first Pope to resign in 235 AD.
Okay.
And he resigned because he was sentenced to death by Emperor Maximus, because Maximus was a very persecuting emperor.
Yeah.
So what he wanted to do, he wanted to change the power so that the papacy doesn't die with him. And he was beaten to death with sticks in Sardinia on October of the same year. Okay. And then there's also another one of my favorites is Benedict the Ninth.
Okay.
Benedict the Ninth was Pope more than 3 times in his lifetime.
Oh.
And he sold the papacy.
Sold? To who?
He's the first. Okay, so basically, he was 20 years old when he assumed papacy for the first time in 1032 AD.
Okay.
Wow,
but
he was young.
Yeah, but he gained a reputation very quickly for lacking moral balance and leading a dissolute life, because he was the son of a bishop or a pope.
Oh, okay.
Like, and already, like, I'm only saying he's cool not because of what he did, because of just general, like, you know, being a 20-year-old pope, being the pope 3 times, that kind of thing. Not because I support his morals or anything. I do not condemn. I do not condone his actions.
Okay. Cool.
And then he was expelled. Like, you know, he was fired from the role twice, and he was reinstated again before he sold that role in 1048 to another priest.
He's sold to a priest.
He literally sold it
worse,
for cash.
but-
He literally sold it for cash.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm only saying he's interesting. Because it's kind of weird that he's been voted 3 times and he sold it.
But is it the same thing now? I don't
I'm pretty
understand.
sure. I'm pretty sure there's roles. I'm pretty sure there's.
Yeah, but how was he Pope 3 times? So it was him, and then it was someone else, and then it was him again. Is that what you mean?
He was fired, and then he was reinstated.
Oh, he was fired.
And then he was fired again, and then he was reinstated again, and this happened 3 times.
Okay.
And before.
Oh God. Okay.
I mean, back in those days, nepotism was a thing. Like, I think the word nepotism came from the papal family. Like, that was it. You would get, your children would be big things in the church, and that's just something that was the norm back in those days. I'm not actually surprised that he was re-elected 3 times.
Okay.
That is a bit of a stretch, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He just wouldn't leave. He just wouldn't leave, would he?
Okay, and then there's also this Pope called Pope John. He's the very first Pope, Pope John. The first Pope John. And, this is a legend more than factually confirmed. But legend has it that Pope John, who ruled between 855 and 877, was actually a woman.
What?
Basically according to a Dominican monk who lived in the 13th century, Pope John was brought to Athens in men's clothing and taken up to a study, and he became a master of learning in the city. And he gave birth in a church. Apparently he was given birth, like he gave birth or she gave birth, whatever, during a church procession. Again, this is legend.
Okay.
This is legend. This is middle-age legend. There's no factual, but that's still cool though. That a woman actually, if it did, a woman became a pope. Like,
yeah, that's good. Yeah,
gender equality, guys.
Really cool.
Gender equality, guys.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's it from us. I think we went over the time a little bit.
Just a bit.
I think we have things to cut out though, so it's fine.
Yeah, we left a lot of things out because this episode is like, the Pope is not something we can just stop.
There's
at
a
30
lot
minutes.
to talk about, in this topic. So
yeah, there's a lot. And because we want not to bore you guys, and because you guys have lives, we decided to cut it short. Anyway, so I'm guessing that's it. Announcements. Stay at home.
Yep.
Stay at home, stay safe. We're all in this together. There's not, like, I get it, it is boring. I understand. I can't leave the house. None of these guys can. We're all in quarantine. Just don't be stupid and risk your life for a little bit of fun. Anything else? As usual, if you want to be involved in any of the ministries, feel free to contact any one of us 3 or anyone in the ministry itself, or DM us on AFCYMBG on Instagram. So like, share, subscribe. So don't forget to subscribe down below, follow us on Instagram, and also DM us or even comment below what topics you guys want to hear for the future, because we want to talk about things that you guys want to hear about, not just what we want as well.
Yeah.
And I guess that's it from us, So till next time.
Right,
and we're gonna finish with a prayer. Dennis, my man.
Sure. Dear Lord, thank you for the words that were spoken today. We hope that we were able to shed at least a little bit of light on the papacy, on the origins, and on the role of the Pope in our modern society. And as an offering of thanks, we would like to say Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, and blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy
Holy
Mary,
Mary,
Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and the hour of
now of our deaths. Amen.
Amen.
Amen, guys.
Amen.
So thank you for watching. We will see you 2 weeks from now, or I don't know.
Next
right now,
time.
next time.
Yeah.
So see you guys, and yeah, bye.
Bye.